Today I've got some easy and budget-friendly ideas to bring that cozy farmhouse vibe to your Easter decor. Welcome to the Chic Show. Today's playlist is hosted by Shabby Meets Bling and Repurposed My Way. Be sure and check out their channels and the playlist in the description below. Every farm needs a way to gather eggs, so we're going to make a little egg gathering bucket. These are 2 buckets from Dollar Tree. I sanded off the glitter and I'm going to remove the top to the smaller bucket. We won't need that at all. I painted both of them with Waverly chalk paint in plaster, and now I'm applying a clear wax with a dirty brush. And I did that actually accidentally, but it was a happy accident because it kind of gave it that rustic look that I was going to have to do later. So that's one step eliminated. Now I'm using some of IOD's paint inlays from the spring release. This is Spring Melody. And to do this, I did have to wipe away some of that wax because I completely forgot that I was going to do this. So I wiped it away and that worked fine. I've applied another coat of, I believe this is, it wasn't Waverly chalk paint and plaster, it's Dixie Belle paint in buttercream. Now once I get that wet coat down, I spritzed my paint inlay with water and then I applied it down to the surface, spritzed it again, gave it a little pat with a damp rag and then let it completely dry. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm applying a wet coat of paint, spritzing that paint inlay and then applying it to the rim of this box top. I'll spritz it again and then let it sit overnight. I've had better luck that way than just waiting till it looks like it's dry. And I'll do the same process for this last paint inlay that I'm applying to the front here. The next day, I spritzed my paint inlays and I gently pulled away that paper. You can reuse these paint inlays 2 or 3 times. They just get a little bit lighter each time. So if you're looking for a rustic look, this is the project for you. And moving on to the bunnies. Spritz it, pat it a little bit, wait about 30 seconds, and then pull up that paper. Now I waited till my paint inlay was completely dry and then I went back with that same dirty brush and that clear wax and applied it around and over the top of the inlay. The inlay does need to be sealed, and since mine was completely dry, I was pretty comfortable brushing gently over the top of it. Of course, the brush wasn't quite as dirty as it was to begin with, so I added a little bit more of dark wax just to kind of blend in those 2 areas. I applied the top to the larger box, and now I'm going to place the smaller box on top. I'm going to poke some holes into the sides of it, and I'm going to use this rusty floral wire as a handle. I feel like these need to be dirtied up a little bit more, so I'm going to be using some old brown eyeshadow and a soft bristle brush. I'm just using a circular motion around the bottom and top of the box so that it has a little bit more of an aged look. And then I'm going to go back with another makeup brush and just brush off any excess. Now it's time to fill the top little box with eggs. So I placed some brown paper in the bottom of it just as a filler, some green moss on top, and then some of my favorite Easter eggs. For project number 2, I have some fancy farm carrots for you. I made these carrots using resin and using the IOD tapers molds from Christmas. And now I'm using some of Waverly chalk paint in pumpkin, and I'm going to paint each of the carrots. Once the paint was dry, I coated each of the carrots with some clear wax. This will allow the dark wax that I'm going to use next to be removed a little bit easier in places that I do want to pull it back. So I'll rub this clear wax all over, basically on the surface of the carrots and not necessarily down in all the nooks and crannies. I'm going to use this little makeup brush to get down in those nooks and crannies with this dark wax because that's where I want the dark wax to stay so that these fancy carrots will look like they've just been pulled out of a fancy garden. Now I'm going to use a dry paper towel and just come back and wipe away any of that dark wax from the surface area of the carrots so that orange paint will come back through. This is one of Dollar Tree's canvas boards, and I'm painting it with Waverly chalk paint in plaster. After the paint has had time to dry, I'm applying some different stamps from IOD. This is the ephemeral type stamp, I believe, and I'm just placing them in various places all over the canvas. I'm also using this little crackle stamp that I ordered from Amazon and just stamping it in random places as well. Now it's time to arrange our carrots onto the canvas and add some greenery. I got this greenery from a garland that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I just cut pieces of it off, and it works perfectly for these carrots. So I cut off about 3 pieces for each of the carrots, and I'm going to tie those together using a little bit of jute twine. And as you can see here, I am applying a little bit of clear and dark wax to the backing as well. Before I used the jute twine to tie those greenery pieces together, I did snap off the ends, and I used a little rubber band to hold them together. I will be adhering the greenery to the front of the carrots this time. So I am going to use some Gorilla Glue and a little bit of hot glue to attach my carrots to the backing. Greenery, I'm going to need a boatload of hot glue because you have to not only put it onto the carrots, but also behind the greenery onto the canvas. It is important to kind of hold it in place until the glue sets up. I forgot to film it, but I felt like there were a couple of spaces there that were a little blank, so I used a butterfly stamp and some egg stamps, both from IOD's Pastiche stamps. And because these are fancy carrots and I like to add a little bit of gold to most of my pieces, I'm using a little bit of gold rub and buff just to bring out those details of the carrots. I also use the rub and buff to accent the edges of the canvas. I'm pretty happy with the way these little carrots came out. And now for a few traditional carrots. These are from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be taking 3 of them and adding some Waverly Antique wax just to make them look a little dirtier. Now, in the end, they don't really show, or at least these 3 didn't, so it wasn't really necessary unless you want to put it on all of the carrots. This is a hula skirt that I thrifted, and I'm just going to be cutting parts of it up so that it looks like grass, and I'm going to place that down into the bag with my carrots. I'm placing those dirtier ones in the front, hoping that they would show. I wanted to apply a label to the front of this bag, so I printed one out that I made. The actual tag is from Graphics Fairy, and then I just added the carrots and the wording to it, and it says Heirloom Bunny Bait. And then I took a little bit of watered down antique wax and brushed that over the top. Purple glue stick for the win, just applied that to the back and put it on the front of that bag, and then we can tie the bag together using some jute twine. No farm is complete without a garden, and I loved this little garden sign that I got from, well, it's from Dollar Tree. They had some kind of like this last year at Dollar General. I'm going to give it a sand with my little finger sander so that the paint I'm going to use will have a better chance of sticking. Then I took it outside and I gave it a coat of spray paint just in black, and now I'm using some of Dixie Belle's patina paint, and this is the iron patina paint, and I'm just brushing it in random places over the sign. Once that paint has dried, I go back over it again because the patina spray needs to be applied to the wet paint. So one coat is dry, the next coat is wet, and I'm spraying on the patina spray, and I made a couple of other patina sprays as well to see if they would work. The patina spray I have is green. I made one using salt and vinegar and some blue paint, and then salt and vinegar and some yellow paint to see if I could get some other shades of rust, if you will. Here's the way it turned out, and while I do like the rusty look of it, it is hard to read the letters. So I went back with a little bit of black rub and buff and went over each of the letters just so that they would stand out a little bit. I liked the way this looked, and it didn't seem to give it too much of a new look to it, so I went ahead and went over the other details of the sign as well. I used a piece of rusty floral wire to hang the sign, just fed it through the original holes at the top, twisted it around, and this little garden sign was ready to be hung. I would love to know which of today's projects was your favorite. Was it our vintage egg gathering basket? Was it the fancy carrots? The traditional carrots? Or our old rusty garden sign? Let me know in the comments. Thanks again to our lovely hosts, and be sure and check out the playlist in the description box below. Here's another video I think you might like. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to share the chic. Bye now.